day, sir.
Hello, how are you?
I'm well. Could
Oh,
you tell
good.
us your name and the year you're born and how long you've been in Morrisville?
My name is Clinton A. Caldwell, and I was born in 43. Yes.
You've been in Morrisville the whole time?
No, I haven't been in Mooresville all my life. Uh, the first 22 years I was here, and I spent 20 years, 21 years in New Jersey.
Okay.
Now I'm back home.
Good stuff.
I'm back on God's earth. Yeah, I know He have the whole world in His hands, but it's so good to be at home.
What do you remember about Morrisville growing up from to the time you left?
Well, quite a few things. Uh, is there anything specific that you want to know? Uh,
Well, what are some of the things that you did growing up? Where'd you go to school? And
I went to school and I graduated from Dunbar High School here in Mooresville. Actually, I lived parallel to the school. Yeah. Sometimes I would wait until 8 o'clock or 5 minutes till, and I'd be there right on time. So yes, uh, yeah, I was right next door to the school. Yeah.
it was a good time?
Oh, wonderful time. Uh, we were a small school, and it was 40. I think it was 43 students in the first grade when we started, and when we graduated, I think it was 12. Yes.
What are some of the things you remember doing in school?
Uh, well, I always wanted to play football, but we didn't have enough students in the whole school for a football team. So we played basketball, and we had a very good team. We won a lot of trophies. Baseball. Actually, a baseball field was adjacent to where we lived. And I would be out there, and my friends, we were like 14, 15, 16. We'll play ball all day long in the summertime because we didn't have anything else that we to do, and we really enjoyed it.
So you got pretty good at it.
Oh yes, I went to New Jersey. I played with the New Jersey Jets, and we played in Wigway Park. And in the 60s, 65, 66, uh, we were invited to Greenville, South Carolina, where we played team there. Yeah. And that's the furthest we traveled from New Jersey is South Carolina.
Segregated teams or?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
What else do you remember about the Weston area? That's Weston, right?
Well, somewhat, yes. Yeah. Uh, Not very much about the western area. I don't, maybe you rephrase that for me.
What businesses do you remember growing up, like around the school or around where you grew up?
Oh, okay. Across, adjacent to the school also was a church. That's where we belong. Uh, it was Baptist church, and across the street from the church there was a 4-6 diner, and I didn't know it was a diner during that time. I've never heard of a diner, and we would always go there and enjoy the food and the music and different things like that. Yeah.
Any other businesses?
Pardon?
Any other businesses you remember?
Well, maybe about 5, 6 blocks from that was a cafe. It was Jim Frank's Cafe, and that's where a lot of people would go. There was a beauty parlor, a barber shop. There was a little restaurant, and there was a cab service. And just right on that Cheryl and McClellan Avenue. We had a lot of things on Cheryl Street that we didn't have to go in any other part of the city. We had, there was, for the adults, we had, it wasn't a Masonic lodge, it was a Oddfellow Hall. It was different places for people of age to go. Yeah.
You mentioned something about Jim Frank's basement.
Oh, yes. I was too young to go in the certain parts of the store because they had a little bit of spirits in the basement somewhat. And we as children, we found out that maybe the boxing was on or the series. We would go and just gather around. It's a little square hole, but it was a window, and we could look in and see some of the festivities that was going on. And we enjoyed that.
They were boxing down there?
Oh, TV. That was the only television we had during that time. Joe Louis and the series. And where I lived was right in the same vicinity as the cafe. And Miss Maggie Pfeiffer was the only person that I know on Cheryl's West End that has a TV. And she would let us come in and watch the Lone Rangers and Howdy Doody program. And after that, she would ask us to leave. Now, you guys can't stay any longer than that. You know, you're making too much noise. But that was really a special treat for the children to come into her house and watch the television.
Do you feel like that was common then for community folks to welcome kids and to watch after them?
Yes, yeah, and she had grandchildren that was our age also. Joe Watson Pfeiffer, and his brother was named, we call him Bud Dean. But yes, and that was very thoughtful of her and generous for her to let us come in to look at the television for an hour. They were on for an hour. Yeah, Lone Ranger and Howdy Doody. Yeah, children nowadays don't know anything about that. Yeah.
What? She was the only one with the TV. What did she do?
As far as I know, she was retired. You know, she was retired, and as far as I know, as a child, young child, you really don't really ask questions or really pay attention to what's going on. You know, yeah, we were only worried about the TV. You know, and during that time, the television would go off at 12 o'clock. We'd pledge allegiance to the flag, and after that, the screen would just be blank. And it had an oval-shaped screen on the television. Oh, that was nice. We enjoyed that. And sometimes she would give us cookies, a little soda, and that was something special. Yeah.
So you left in your early 20s. Do you remember the beginning of the
Oh, sure. There was news all over the United States and in the foreign countries. Yes. Actually, when I left here, it was during that time of civil rights, and I lived in Elizabeth, New Jersey. And one night, a couple of friends and myself were going to Newark, New Jersey, and that was only maybe 5 to 7 miles. And when we got into Newark, and I seen all the guards, they had the roads blocked off, and I've never been in the army or anything, and it looked as if it was a war going on, and we had to turn around and go back from which we came. And the city was on fire and smoke and all that other stuff, you know. It was a terrible time. Yeah.
What was Mooresville like when you left Mooresville?
Well, when I left Mooresville was a city as far as children and growing up into a city, and my parents didn't talk about a lot of different things. You treat everybody the way you want to be treated, and we took a lot of things under consideration. You could go pretty much anywhere in town you wanted to go, but there was always limits. A friend of mine's mother worked in a cafe, and we would go around to the back of it and order our food, you know. And she said, okay, well, everyone knew everyone in Mooresville. And she said, now when you get your sandwich, you know what you should do. And we said, yes, ma'am. And turn around and go back to your neighborhood, and everything was fine. You enjoyed the hamburger on the way. Yeah, whatever you purchase. Yeah. But as a whole, Mooresville was a lot better than a lot of other cities. Yeah. Yeah.
In most of the restaurants around it during that time, even though blacks had to go to the back door, but from some of the information that we've gathered, that most of the cooks that was in the restaurants was black.
Yes, that's correct. I know. I was in Statesville. One of my brother-in-laws worked at the flour mill, and I just so happened to be there when at lunchtime. When he had to go to lunch, he said, "Well, look, come and go and have lunch with me." I said, "Okay, all right." And it was just right across the street from the flour mill. And when we walked in, everybody was talking, and then wasn't aware of it when I went in, but the blacks was on one side, they had a petition, and the whites were on the other side. I said, why they have this up here like this is the same restaurant? He said, well, that's the way it is. And he just left it like that. I think I was 14 or 15 during that time, you know. So it didn't really dawn on me as far as white and black, as long as we got what we went in there for. And he wasn't, he understood what was going on. So it didn't bother me at all.
You had mentioned about some black businesses. How many black businesses do you know of that were in Mooresville when you was coming along? You mentioned one and I didn't write it down and I forgot about it, but maybe if you start talking, I'll remember.
Well, a lot of, for a small town, we had quite a few gas stations and different things like that. And we had Pike Stewart, had a gas station uptown, South Main Street, and we had O.B. Stevenson across the street from the railroad station, and down the street we had another auto mechanic shop. So there was quite a few black-owned businesses. We had a lot of entrepreneurs. We had plumbers, which was J.W. Johnson. He lived on West McClellan. That's the part of town that I lived in. And we had Mr. Johnson. He was he had something to do with the oil company. Yeah, I know he was a driver. My dad was a mason, and actually he built the house that we are in now. He did everything but the electrical work. He didn't have a lot of people to help him, and we lived on Cheryl Street, and every day he'd come home from work, he would have something to eat, and he would go over and work on his house. And he used a lot of children that was probably in high school to help him. And we used to get our water from, there was a branch on our property, and we used to carry water up for him to mix his material with. Yeah.
And then they were also, I can't remember the guy that, they were kin to George Wilson. I can't remember George's mama's name, but wasn't there a Wilson guy that did his own pulpwood?
He did, and that was Mr. George Wilson's father. And he was right there where the house was in front of our house, probably about maybe 30 yards. And he would supply a lot of people with wood during the winter months. And if you were building something, you could purchase it from him. Yeah. And of course, like Terry's Taxi and Terry's Restaurant across the street from the church was really a ideal place for people to go and just have something to eat and enjoy themselves. Yeah.
Is Terry's 46 Diner, is that the same thing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you did not grow up with running water then, or am I hearing that wrong?
Oh no, we didn't have running water.
Oh.
Yeah. I remember the day that we had our water turned on. I thought it was God's gift coming down, coming out of the pipes. When I can just walk in the kitchen and turn the faucet and water would come out. Because when my mother would wash, we'd have to carry water from the branch and put it in the different tubs. And when we got a washing machine, oh, I thought that was something special. And because my mom just smiled. I was wringing the clothes out one day, and it's a wringer on there, and I got my finger too far in there, and it caught my hand, and it just knocked off. My hand was in there. So you had to raise it, someone to raise it up to get your hand out. Didn't know anything about it. That's why you shouldn't mess with anything you don't know anything about. I'm sorry. Cut that.
I remember them wash machines. Y'all ever seen them? They had a thing at 2 rollers.
Yeah.
And if you stick that your head in and that thing, one side of that roller might come up like this, and they had a little lock on the other side. They would pop it open with you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
And then they had the big tin tubs where it would go over the tin tubs, and they had blue dye in it. You remember that
Yeah, oh yeah, yes. Yes, that would, the roller would, you wouldn't have to wring it out with your hand. You put your clothes in there and it would squeeze the water out of the clothes. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and then coming from the washing machine, going into the tub of the rinse water, which would be blue dye.
Yeah,
It would put all the water back in out of the clothes would go back into the washing machine.
mm-hmm,
And then when you get ready to rinse them out, you spin the wringer, and then we'll put the water back in that was wring out the clothes, it would go back into the rinse tub.
yeah, yeah. I remember my dad and mom had 10 children, and they helped raise 3 more children. So it was 13 of us, sometimes in one house. That's the house I live in now. It's one that's close to the school. And we used to take a bath in a tin tub. So when we was really young, the youngest one would take a bath, and then the next 2 would take a bath, and then quite naturally, the oldest ones would go in the bathroom and do what they had to do. Yeah. And my dad never did smoke cigarettes. He would smoke a pipe. And we had a big warm morning stove in the living room, just like we sitting here now. And it was set right there because it was a fireplace. And Dad figured out that the fireplace wasn't heating the house like it should, like he thought it would. Because women used to sit around the fireplace, and if they put certain type of wood in there, it would pop out on their legs or on their clothes. Or even men, where they pop out and you get a little hole in your pants or whatever. So we got a warm morning stove and put in there. It was a pot-belly stove. And he came in from hunting one day. And he said, when he came in, he said all his shells that came out in his pocket. So he was standing there talking to us, and he had his pipe. And he didn't take it out of his pocket. He put it in his pocket to put the tobacco in it. And he was standing up talking, and he lit his pipe, and he's talking, and all of a sudden something said, pow! Everybody looked around. Dad still had that stem in his mouth. The pipe, the round part, the pipe itself, had shattered. And my mom said, yeah, that's what happened. Look at what you have in your mouth. It stunned him, you know. He said, oh, Lord, is anybody hurt around here? And everybody said they were all right. He asked all of us. And he said, I've never smoked anymore. And he never did after that. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, listen, I got 2 questions, if y'all don't mind. Your first job after high school in Mooresville, what was it like? Could you see any segregation in your first job now that you can go back and look and think about it? Because probably then you probably didn't recognize it.
It was a part of life for me, the way I was raised up. And if you want a job, and if they ask you if you want a certain type of job, and if you said yes, then that's what you would do. But I worked in chem spawn, dolphin frames. I enjoyed it, and I didn't pay any attention to what the other person or the other race of people were doing. I was glad I had a job. And my first check was $60, and I never made $60 in my life. So, and I took it home. I said, "Well, Dad, I'm gonna give you half of it. He said, "Well, no, you take the half that you gonna give me, you save it. You said you wanted a car. You save that and buy your own car." I said, "Well, I got to give you something." He said, "No, I don't want you to give me anything." And on graduation day, I never forget this. All the children were there, and their parents was bringing them gifts and everything, and say, "Clinton, here's your gift," and guess what it was? It was a suitcase. Well, it didn't dawn on me. I said, "A suitcase? Everybody getting pants and shirts and shoes?" Mama and Dad was telling me something. If you got a suitcase, it's time for you to go. They didn't tell me that straight out. They didn't, But my dad and mom loved me. They loved all the children. I loved them. And that was a good thing, a good way, in a way, to tell me, because my dad and mom, my dad was 40, and my mom was 39 when I was born. All my other siblings were older, and they were out of the house. But I always helped my mom.
Okay, the next question. I kind of got a little whiff from your sister Ruth that ball field that was there, that's there still to the day, that land was donated to the school from your dad, and I think they said my grandmother might have had something to do with it. Can you tell us something about that?
Yes. Well, my mom worked for the school. She was a dietitian. She and Miss Winnie Hooper. That's what the center in Mooresville on Shore Street is named out of, is Winnie Hooper's center. That small stretch of road there, it was named after my mother, Bolivia, and the name of it is Bolivia Lane. When the school came, well, I don't know exactly what happened, but the land was donated to help the school. And as far as I know, they didn't get a penny for it. And sometimes when you give people something, what can I really say? They took some other parts of the land in order to fit the ball field land. But actually, I would say half of the land was donated from my father. I have a map in there to show where my father's house, where the land was donated from, and where my sister lived until she passed away this year, and where my brother used to live. And see, my father's land go to the next street over, Alexander Street, right at Reverend Freddie Kern's house, where Miss Barbara lived also. It's a cul-de-sac there. So I can go on Alexander Street and look straight, and I can see my house. I can see my brother's house and some of the ball field. Yeah.
Well, I would love to see that, the part of it where it's showing from where your parents' house, where that ball field's at, and see how far out that went.
Well, see, that map is not going to show you that part.
Okay.
They won't show you that part. But if we was down there, I could show it. I'd be glad to show it to you, and you see what we're talking about.
What I might do is get Sean to, because Sean said he's gonna rent a, what do you call it?
A drone?
Yeah, drone.
Yeah, well, that's fine,
Because
anytime.
that, and you know, you can cut off on this, but, because that's a part that's bothered me, is that we had that land, and I had said 3 years ago, I says, we could, that ball field back there that we used back
Yes,
then, I says, we could take that property, get the town to put tables, chairs, all this stuff, and then you got that Winnie Hooper Center right there. They could take that and concrete that all the way across there, and make that a nice area, even for parking, where you could have outings and all of this. And somebody asked me, said, have you seen that property back there yet lately? I said, no. They said they got junk. They done put stuff back there from the town. And that kind of bothered me. And we have mentioned that to the town of Mooresville, that that property was given to the school by blacks. And now you take it and, you know, do what you want to do with it now, and didn't even come back to offer us anything. What would y'all like to see done here?
you were right, yeah,
You see what I'm saying?
yes.
They could have came back to us and said, what would y'all like to see done here? Because that could have been something beautiful. And still can be. But they done built some two little buildings, I think, there, something at the beginning, where you first come around from the school, going back in there, and they done fixed it up.
Yeah, it's
right?
one, it's,
Yeah.
I think it's an industrial art and automotive,
Something, yeah. But
yeah.
they could keep that part fenced off, but all that back there could have been used, all that can be used, and, because you said they just moved the lights, what, about 2 years ago?
Oh, it's been longer than that, it's
Okay.
been
'Cause
about,
they had big lights out
yeah.
there, and they had the whole 9 yards, and,
they used to play ball, all that,
yeah.
but now it's fenced in.
Okay, now, if y'all got any more questions, guys?
I'm gonna back up to high school.
Mhm.
Do you remember any of your teachers, any stories about your teachers or principal?
Oh, yes. The teachers, all the teachers was really, really nice. A lot of the teachers lived in the city doing school. Actually, it was a few teachers that rented a room for my mom and dad doing, you know, and some of the other residents here in town would offer them rooms, just a little bit of something, you know, because they were teaching their children. So in that way, they'll be able to know the parents and as well so as the students. So, and it was it really fit just right, because a lot of children wouldn't do certain things because the teachers knew the parents, and I think that made a big difference with us, you know. Yeah.
Can you, for the documentary, can you tell us your mother and your father's name?
About
Can you just say your father and your mother's name?
oh, my father was Robert Waddell Caldwell, and my mother was Bolivia Burton Caldwell. She was a Caldwell. I mean Burton before, you know, Caldwell. Mm-hmm.
So, I'm gonna tell you, that's family to you. The Burtons, they from all over the river. That's my wife's cousin, so you came to the Burton. He's, what,
Maybe.
no, you, well,
Gabriel.
Gabriel.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Y'all all kid, right?
Yeah. I remember
See you.
in 1965, my mother always talked about we had people that lived, like you said, across the river. That's what we used to talk about all the time. But she said she wanted to go over there And she said, I want you to meet some of my people. I said, okay, Mom. I'll take my mom anyway. And we got in the car, and we didn't have GPS. So we had a map. I said, well, Mom, give me the map and some of the diagrams and what direction that we were going in. And when we got there, we didn't get lost. And when we pulled up, there was a man that came outside and said, you're looking for so-and-so? And my mom said, yes. She called her name out. And I looked at my brother. He was sitting in the back seat. I looked at him. I said, we're at the wrong place. And a lady came out and said, who is that, Bolivia? She said, yes. She said, oh, dear, now you just come on out. And they just laughed and hugged each other, you know. But I didn't know my people were like that. I didn't. But it's a blessing to show how close-knit that we are. They had blue eyes and straight hair. That's right. You couldn't tell them from an Indian, yes, but we were shocked. Mama didn't say anything, but I guess she wanted us to be surprised. I think that was in Denver or somewhere like that. Yeah.
But yeah, that's the side. My wife is the virgin. She knows that's how she's kin to you, and because of the fact that it was written.
Mm-hmm. What about that lady on Salisbury Highway? I used to take Mama out there.
Miss Orr, that was my wife's mom.
Oh, Lord have mercy. I pass by there all the time. Every time I'm going to Salisbury, it's 152. And maybe I've been by there 1,000 times, but when I go by there, I can't help from thinking about I have people that live here, and I don't know very much about them.
Yeah, Beverly said she was wondering, where did them people get to? And then she found out it was my wife.
Yeah.
She said, Lord.
Small world.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But it is, if you,
You got anything you would like to ask him? Yeah.
Oh, no. What year was that, when you went to North, New Jersey?
that was 66.
That was 66?
Yeah, it was during the time of the riot. Yeah, I was there for a little while. Yeah, when you're not used to all of that and you know what's going on, and you go back home, which is 5 or 6 miles from where I was when I looked on TV and seen all that happen, and you had the Army reserves and everybody out there. It was something to see.
So it wasn't exaggerated, all the mayhem that you were looking at? So from what you were looking at on TV and from what you saw in real life, was it any of it exaggerated?
It was. No, nothing exaggerated. It was the truth. And like I said, I've never been in service, but from what I've seen in a war zone, it was like that. It may have been a little worse. Because you were right there on the scene. You're there, and people running and hollering and sirens, and you hear gunfire, and it's something we're not, I take my hat off to the, pardon?
There was gunfire happening at the same time?
Oh yeah, everything. For a complete week, it was really, intense. It was.
That wasn't doing King.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out which one he's talking about. I forgot you're from Jersey, though. That's the.
In '66, that was right when they desegregated the schools here in Mooresville. I think King was assassinated in, was this 68?
68, yeah. I gotta look it up now. All right, there was another question, I just can't.
Okay. Yeah.
Do you remember anything about healthcare, or did y'all, did you ever go to the hospital to a doctor, or did your, how was that growing up?
Well, we were able to have insurance. Mom and Dad had insurance on us, you know. We would have, I guess it would be not an insurance agent, but someone would come and I think you had some little brown folder somewhere over there. She would have a name on a folder like that, and it would be on the door. It would be it's a nail there, and she would have it there, and the insurance man would come, get the money off, write your name down on there, and the amount. That was, yeah, we had insurance, yeah.
That's so interesting that.
Yeah, I think it may have been, I think life insurance, it was had a penny like policy thing, maybe 20 cents a month, like that, yeah, yeah. And I don't know, my parents, and I never did ask them, and we had all those children in one house. So we never did run out of food. We had our own garden. My dad would buy a cow in February, 1st of March. We'll keep him till October, and that would be our beef. We had chickens. We had and like I said, a garden. We had pretty much everything that we needed. We just had to go to the store to buy coffee and sugar. And we go to the flour mill and get a flour. But as far as going to the grocery store, we really didn't have to go to the grocery store for anything. I have churned milk. It's a churn with I used to call it a stick in the middle of it, and churned milk. We used to make our own ice cream, different things like that. My brothers, well, my sisters, because it was just one of them married, and they would have parties, and they would have a punch bowl with a little dipper and the little cups around. And I couldn't go in the inside, but like that door right there, I'd peep around and see what they were doing in there. I guess I couldn't go in there. They wouldn't let children go in there. But we lived a good life.
Y'all had all that right there off of Cheryl.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Right there behind Campbell's Baptist Church. Right behind the church. Right
Yeah.
behind.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I remember those chickens.
And turkeys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Turkeys.
Yeah.
I remember that. But you know, it's a wonder. I'll let you talk about this, what I'm getting ready to say. But you know, it's a wonder that none of us got killed off of that bank. You know, where the ball diamond,
Oh,
where
yes.
the baseball diamond
Yeah.
was at.
Mhm.
It's a wonder if some of us didn't fall off of that thing and get hurt or get
Yeah,
killed.
because that was something.
We used to dig holes back up in there and
Yeah.
set back in there when that thing had to collapse.
Yeah, didn't think about it, and the older people didn't say anything about it. And we had one kid, Superman was in during that time, and he wanted to fly, and he had his cape on. Jones used to live up there. He tried to fly, and he got hurt kind of bad, but it wasn't nothing for him to go in the hospital. But he didn't try that again. Yeah.
Yeah, that was dangerous.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, we
Yeah.
just sat on the edge of it.
And see, and that's the part I was talking about that the school took, because they couldn't fit the baseball field in there. So, wasn't nothing that we could do about it, because Mom wasn't anyone here. All of my brothers and sisters were going, and of course they had Nate and Bud Knox here, but they did what they wanted to do, you know. So.
Well, what can you tell us about Mr. Woods that you know, that if you, what you know about Mr.
Oh, Mr. Woods was a great principal. Now, Mr. Woods looked like my cousins over in Denver and over that way. But as children as a whole, I never heard anyone saying, oh, he looked like he's so-and-so, whatever. Well, everybody was okay with everything, you know. The children that were going to school. No one questioned about his color or whatever.
But nobody knew.
Pardon?
But nobody knew.
Didn't anyone know?
Yeah.
But nobody didn't know what his nationality was. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, I'm pretty sure not really until later years.
So you do know.
I do know, yeah.
What was he?
What was it? I'll give you one guess.
Nobody's been able to say.
He was black.
He was black.
We are what our father is.
Okay.
Yeah.
He had an ounce in him.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What?
I know I never seen his wife. I seen his son. And his son looked white.
Yeah.
When
Mhm.
I seen it. I mean,
Yeah.
he was completely white, and I never seen his wife.
Yeah. Well, he was the same way, but his dad was. Yeah. You remember Miss Clara Neely?
Yeah.
She used to live on now. As far as integration or anything like that, she used to live in one of the prominent areas of town, and she was the only black woman who lived out there.
Well, what about books? When you was in school, did you ever receive new books, or was back then were you getting hand-me-downs with pages was missing?
Well, we did. We received hand-me-downs from senior high school. Now, as far as the elementary school, I'm pretty sure if we received books from high school, we also received books for elementary. And like I said, it was only a small amount of children that really started and finished school. Like I say, it was 30. I think it was 38 when we started, and it was 12 when we graduated. Yeah. So, and he was adamant about getting different things that we should have had for learning, books and even some type of equipment, whatever. He really wanted that for the children, and he really tried.
Well, in other words, what you're saying, you got, because I know I got hand-me-downs when we was there, and the pages was missing. If you had that page, we all would hold up over here with this book.
Yes.
Got the page, and
Mm-hmm.
so some of the pages.
Some of the pages were gone, but yeah. If you grew up in that area during that time, some of the things were, most of the children my age didn't question anything. You know, if we leave here and we wanted a soda, well, the only place we could get it was at the pharmacy. So, the drugstore, we used to call it. We'd stop and get a soda. We didn't have any problem. We knew that we couldn't sit down. It didn't bother us. We got what we wanted, and we walked, you know. So, a lot of things like that happen. And as far as eating, like we were talking about earlier, at different restaurants or little stores, it didn't bother us. Yeah.
You know, I guess the reason why it didn't bother us back then, because we were really thinking that that's the way it was going to be. You know, that this is life, this is
Yeah,
the way it's going to be.
So
But
your
now
parents
that you look back-
wanted you to come back home every
Yeah.
every night or day or whatever. than
now-
really tell you the danger of it, you know. And this is what it is, and this is what we expect of you to do. I'm sorry about cutting in.
That's good. That's good. All right, that was a good interview. Everybody got anything else to, yeah, that was a really good interview. If you had one thing, we can close it on this one. If you had one thing that you would like to share with the young people today, like I asked Reverend Sanders, how people got along, seemed like back years ago they got along better than, work together, closer together than they do now. What would you say? You look at the camera and just, what would you?
I would say it's different. Of course, it's a different time in this world that we live in. Years ago, if someone was to knock on the door, your dad would go to the door. Your mom never did go to the door. Or she would go to the door. If your dad wasn't home, she didn't open the door. She spoke to who you want to see or whatever, and that was it. But now, from having two parents, you don't have any parents at home. You have children raising children. The small children run the house. A lot of people know when I say run the house, they are the parents. The mother would like to be a parent and a friend to their children. They haven't been taught to do certain things, and all they want is to be loved. And the streets have all that love they think that they need, and they're not getting it at home. They can't get it at home. I hope it was a way that we could turn that around. And I've heard a lot of children say, I don't care, whatever it is, I'll go and make that time. I'll do this and do that, take a life. But when things like that happen, it's not one life. It's a community of lives, you know, different families. His family, her family, that they haven't really thought about if I was to do this or do that. I don't know how we could turn that around. It's like if you start a ball rolling down the hill, it's hard to stop it and reverse the progress. And that's just how difficult right now that it is, that I see. And what I see and what I don't know make a new world.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good interview. Really good interview. That's
Well,
a lot of good clips.
I'm
there.
glad your eraser is on there. You can just block it off.